Explain to each other what affirmative action is. What is it? What do you think it is?
Affirmative action is just like it's a soluble solution to an insoluble problem. So
wait, it's a what?
It's a soluble solution to an insoluble problem. So it's just like it's a problem that can't really be solved. We can just try and take steps towards redefining it. Because like ultimately, it's like we're talking education here.
The guy who raised his hand and went, his definition was a soluble solution to an insoluble problem. That's not a definition.
So you brought up in the beginning of the class, I think affirmative action is like a really great step towards that. I mean, you're creating opportunity for people, with more diverse backgrounds, not just white people. So, yeah.
Okay, so affirmative action is fair. So someone tell me what affirmative action is. What is it? Someone. Go ahead, dude. What do you think it is? Well, wait, hang on. First off, can you just partner up with your friend, with whoever's sitting next to you really fast? Can you just explain to each other what affirmative action is? What is it? What do you think it is?
What do y'all think affirmative action is? Let me, because I'm a student, so let me participate, because they're my age when they get in this video. Affirmative action is... Hold up, let me think. I'm trying to think of a real definition for it. Affirmative action. I don't know if I can think of like an actual definition. Okay, affirmative action is when you take an underprivileged group and try to migrate them more into society by giving them affirming benefits. I don't know. I can't even think of a real definition. I don't know, bro.
Dude.
So affirmative action is just like it's a soluble solution to an insoluble problem. So
wait, it's a what?
It's a soluble solution to an insoluble problem. So it's just like it's a problem that can't really be solved. We can just try and take steps towards redefining it. Because like ultimately, it's like we're talking education here. So you'd have to scrap the whole education system that goes back to public schools in poor like socioeconomic places. Kids that aren't receiving that education, that funding, and then it's like at the end of the day, you said there are X amount of resources to go around. So now we have to look at privatizing education.
All right. Okay. All right. That's cool. All right. There's a start. Somebody else. Who else wants to kick it out? Anybody? What do you think?
Nobody?
Dude, the idea is...
And it's crazy because... And here's the thing. This is a classroom full of college students. I'm a college student. And even I, and of course, y'all see everyone there had a hard time defining what affirmative action is. Like, if you ask the average college student who is literally in college, what is affirmative action? Most people cannot give you a real definition. The guy who raised his hand and went, his definition was a soluble solution to an insoluble problem. That's not a definition. And it just really like puts things into perspective that most people, including myself, I'm not gonna lie, you can't really define it like off the top of your head, but people fight so hard for it, but you can't even define it. Like, what is it? Something to think about. Hey y'all, make sure y'all subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to subscribe.
The idea is, how do you break the cycle? Right? How do you break the cycle? Like, how do you make it different? How do you break it? Right? Like, first off, you got to understand, people on top, if you really think that, like, yeah, people need to have a fair chance. It's not fair, people on the bottom, they should have an equal chance. They should have a fair chance. Yeah, you got that? When you say that, they're going to be competing with you. They're going to be competing on a level playing field with you, with your kids. And it doesn't matter if it's poor white people, right? Or poor white people, or poor black and brown people. It doesn't really matter. The point is, if you want to have a system that's more equitable, then it means that everyone's going to get to compete with one another. So, dude, hang on. Following from what he just said, here's affirmative action. You take some kind of action, a concrete, deliberate action that somehow is designed to take people who are down here or who are here and not up here, wherever it is, but down here, some action that is designed that will give them a couple steps on the ladder to make it more reasonable, more likely that they can compete on a fairer playing field with people who are up here. So maybe it's like refugees come into the United States. And like a form of affirmative action with refugees, we don't do much for refugees here.
Okay, so let me define affirmative action. I looked it up on Google. I'm not afraid to admit it. I don't care. The practice or policy of favoring individuals belonging to groups regarded as disadvantaged or subject to discrimination. Let me read that again. The practice or policy of favoring individuals belonging to groups regarded as disadvantaged or subject to discrimination. And in concept, as a theory, affirmative action is an amazing idea because you're helping people who don't have the resources to help themselves. And in a country such as America, that's a great privilege people have. In theory, it's a great idea. I think the biggest problem that people have with something such as affirmative action is this one sentence right here in the definition. The practice or policy of favoring individuals or groups regarded as disadvantaged. That word regarded as disadvantaged, or that phrase regarded as disadvantaged, that's what really pushes people away from affirmative action. Because regarded, who's regarding it? That's subjective. Black people can be regarded as disadvantaged, but who's looking at it? Foreigners can be regarded as disadvantaged, but how do you know? And when people look at affirmative action in practice and they're seeing it favor other groups who, in their eyes, like there's no way they're more disadvantaged than me, that's when it sprouts a real issue. So I don't know, man. It's like when you think about it like that, it's like, wow, maybe this really is unfair. But anyways,
here, trust me. But one thing is, we'll often provide housing or a certain amount of benefits for a very limited amount of time. And basically what we're saying is, listen, you're coming here, you have nothing. We don't want people to have nothing because we don't want people in our society who have absolutely no resources. We want people who can take care of themselves. And so what we're going to do is, since we're bringing you in, we're going to give you the resources we think you need to at least get you here to have some kind of firm footing, and it's up to you to go the rest of the way. So you can either go backwards, you can stay where you're at, or you can move forward. And that is taking some kind of action in the affirmative. Okay, you got it? In some kind of way. That's affirmative action. I don't know how else to do it. But what I hear from white people, go to the next slide, bro. I wrote this, but I'm like, I don't know why I wrote that. Let me just kick this out to you. It's like here. For Asians, East Asians in the United States, and South Asians, by the way, in the U.S., people of Asian ancestry living in the United States who take the SAT exam, to be seen as equal by a college admissions boards at the more elite schools, to be seen as equal to white people, okay? To be seen as white people. So listen, man. Here, I'm going to have to do this. Dude, can you stand up real fast? Dude, stand up real fast. You too. Okay? Average Asian. They both take the SAT. For him to compete with him, okay, at the more elite schools, he has to score 100 points higher on average on his SAT exam than he does.
100 points higher! Bro. That is crazy.
Because in the United States, we've come to this place where at the elite institutions, there are too many Asians. And like people that look like him, it's like it's cool. And we want a fair and equitable system, but what's going on is there are too many Asians who are coming in, doing really well on these exams, and taking all these spots from everybody else. And so listen, we don't even have enough space for white people. So in order for you to compete with him at the more equitable schools, you got to score 100 points higher on your SATs. This is how it is. This is affirmative action for white people.
That is racist. Like, bro, I don't care what nobody say. I don't care what nobody say. That is pure racist. Growing up, I went to a STEM high school. Y'all don't know what that means. It means basically when you enter your freshman year, you pick a discipline, either engineering or science, and you go all the way up and you learn more about that discipline as you eventually graduate. And you had to test into this school. And when I went to this school, although I'm from a predominantly black area, it was a lot of Asian people at the school. I'm not gonna lie, it was a lot of Asian people at the school. And it was something new to me because I didn't, grow up around a lot of Asian people in middle school and stuff like that. So it was very new to me. But one thing that I noticed is that me and the Asian people or whatever, we had very similar lives. Parents probably worked very similar jobs, drive very similar cars. There wasn't nothing. They just lived very normal lives, very normal. We have very similar lives. The only difference between us was probably, skin color. It's that, and of course probably some cultural things, but it was just that. So when I hear this story, it's like I can only imagine you growing up and living basically the same life as me, or the same life as let's say a white person, and you still having to score 100, 200, 300 points higher than them to go to the same college when we literally live the same life. Me and a few other Asian people or white people live the same life. I'd argue they probably live a worse life. And they got to score higher than me to get into the same school. That is insane, bro. And I hope that's not the full definition. I'm hoping someone tells me a different definition, but from what I know now, that's insane.
You didn't know that, right? So, okay, you didn't know that all these Asian people who you see as in your classes, this isn't so true, and this isn't really true here at Penn State because we're not one of the more elite schools, Carter, in spite of I know that the cheering team thinks that we are, but we're really not, all right? And so we're not one of the more elite schools, but if we were, there's no white person who thinks oh yeah, I got affirmative action in here because, all these Asians had to score so much higher than I did. And it's happening all the time. There are all sorts of ways in which we have affirmative action. I got another one. Here, have a seat. Dude, can you come back up real fast? Since you both have hoodies on. Dude, just put your hoodie on, put your hoodie up. Okay, so here's the deal. So, it's Mike, right? So listen, man. Maurice and Mike here. Well, here's another bit of affirmative action. Maurice, in order to have the same life chances as Mike, he has to have a squeaky clean record with regard to the police, with regard to all legal systems. And that is not easy to do for a black man in the United States. And not because black men commit more crime, although they do, by the way. Not by a lot, just by a little bit. Okay? Just by a little bit. Just enough that is really largely explained by class differences, right? Not because black people commit more crime. Because somehow, man, dude, in spite of the hoodie, in spite of in spite of everything, it's we're looking at black guys more. Just looking at black. Here, let me show you something. Go to the next slide, bro. This just came out. So this is the sons. So here's what you have. Black men. This is household income of parents. This is really complex, but I'm going to show it to you. This is household income of parents. So these are the richest 10% of black families and white families, and the poorest 10% of black families and white families. Okay, and this is black men who have been incarcerated or have a chance of being incarcerated. Okay, so the poorest black men, you have almost a 1 in it really. At the poorest levels, you have a 1 in 4 chance of being incarcerated. At the wealthiest levels, you have a 2% chance of being incarcerated. But look at white men here. So white men, the sons of black families from the top 1%. So dude, if Maurice's family is in the top 1%, He has an equal chance of a white guy of being incarcerated as a white person from families making $36,000 a year. So in other words, dude, for Maurice to stay away from the police, he has to have a squeaky clean record. He has to be, everywhere he goes, he has to be careful. Everything he does, he has to be careful. Mike and I, we can go out. In state college, it's a little bit different because police.
And this is a crazy statistic, bro. And this is a crazy statistic. When I hear stuff like this, and you look at the lowest chances, like a 1 in 5 black men being arrested if they're in the lower 1% of society or lower 10% of society. It just makes you think, bro. It makes you think about like our culture. It makes you think about like our livelihood. It makes you think about how we come up. It makes you think about everything, because when I look at that and I look at how we're being incarcerated and how many crimes we commit, here's what I think about. If we on average are committing more crimes in society, then unfortunately we're going to garner more attention in society. And that's something that just sucks. Like, if we're committing more crimes, then people are going to have more biases about us committing more issues. And that's something that me personally, I want to change. But as of now, I don't really know what to say about that. Like, that's why I get on YouTube and try to make these videos. I'm like, no, like, we need to stray away from this culture of committing crimes, this culture of promoting violence, this culture of pushing negative energy, because this is how people start to perceive us. This is how people perceive us, bro. And people try to pretend like that doesn't matter. Oh, this music doesn't affect how people perceive y'all. Oh, this, this dressing like this doesn't affect how people perceive you. But it does. Like, if this is a culture that is very prevalent in our neighborhoods, is very prevalent in how we act, is very prevalent in what we like to watch, and we see what our favorite rappers are doing or our favorite entertainers are doing, and we like them, we like watching their stuff, we're going to mimic their behavior. We're going to mimic the way they talk. We're going to mimic the way they dress. We're going to mimic the way they act. And what happens, bro? It happens in lower income areas for us. The kids in these areas are mimicking. Who do you think they're getting the behavior from? That's the difference, bro. It's culture, bro. And this is why I get on YouTube. I try to, sway away from this type of culture. But, I mean, what can you do, man? But if y'all have any thoughts on that, comment down below. It's LFR Jojo, and I'll see y'all on the next one.